Dr. Nick created a system to control Elvis's medicine and had a nurse to keep track of it. This shows that he wanted to help Elvis. Elvis also agreed to this, so he wanted controlled help too. He could have chosen a different doctor who would give him more medicine, but he didn't. This means Elvis wasn't just trying to get high. He wanted to feel better and function well. Dr. Nick was the only doctor who admitted Elvis to the hospital and tried to figure out what was really wrong with him. Even though some people might think Elvis was a drug addict, Dr. Dan Brookoff said that taking care of many people isn't the behavior of a drug addict. Instead, Elvis was a sick person who sometimes took too much medicine to escape his pain. Dr. Nick, who was looking after Elvis, started to say that Elvis should do fewer shows and shorter tours because he was very tired. Sometimes, other singers would perform by themselves during the show to give Elvis a break. In 1973, Dr. Nick suggested to the Colonel, who managed Elvis, that they should only do one show a day. In 1976, after playing 5 shows in 3 days, it was clear that Elvis was really tired. Dr. Nick told the Colonel that this schedule was crazy and he didn't want to be a part of it anymore. On September 6, 1976, Elvis performed 2 shows in 1 day for the last time, but it was too late to help him. Even though Elvis had a bit less work, he still felt a lot of pressure. He talked to people like backup singer Kathy Westmoreland and Larry Geller about how much he hurt. His eyes caused him pain and he had other health problems too. Dr. Nick said that Elvis had bad pain from issues in his back and neck because of severe arthritis. Elvis was in a lot of pain and used medicine to help him feel better and keep going. He thought he could handle everything on his own, like Superman, and didn't like to ask for help. During Elvis's 8th tour, his girlfriend Linda Thompson was with him, but they broke up before the tour ended. A new girl, Ginger Alden, who was 20 and wanted to be a beauty queen, took Linda's place. Some people thought Ginger was nice, but not ready for the challenges of dating Elvis. Larry Geller, Elvis's hairdresser, remembered Ginger as a sweet lady but didn't think she was good for Elvis because she was too young and inexperienced. They didn't seem to fit well together, and Elvis was very sick at the time. Elvis was very tired because he had a lot of work and performances, including one in Vegas. He was also worried about a book that some people he knew were writing about him. They had shared a private conversation he had on the phone with the public, and this made him feel betrayed. Even famous singer Frank Sinatra tried to help Elvis stop the book from being published. Elvis had helped these people a lot, but they still decided to write a book that hurt him deeply. It was hard for him because these people were part of his close circle. On January 8, 1977, Elvis turned 42 and it was his last birthday. He started dating Ginger Alden and proposed to her after about 2 months. They wanted to keep it a secret. Elvis had to prepare for more tours, but Ginger didn't always want to travel with him, which made him upset. People thought it was too much for Ginger to handle, especially since Elvis was very sick. A backup singer said Ginger was too young and it was too much for her to take care of a dying man. In February, Elvis started a tour that lasted 10 days and included 9 cities. He performed 10 shows, but by the end, he was exhausted. After the last show in Charlotte, North Carolina, he told his bodyguard that he needed a rest. 30 people, including Elvis and Ginger, planned a trip to Hawaii. Elvis wanted to relax and enjoy the islands with her. People said he didn't take extra medicine on this trip, and he seemed to be doing better. Larry Geller remembered Elvis having a lot of fun outside in the sun. When the group returned for the second tour of the year, everyone was hopeful. Even Elvis's bodyguard, Ed Parker, noticed improvements in Elvis's health and energy. But after a week of the second tour, Ed realized that Elvis's body was like a battery that had been used too much, couldn't hold a charge anymore, and his health started to decline again. During the second tour, Elvis started well, but by day 9, he couldn't perform. Larry, a friend, and Dr. Nick were called to help. Elvis was in pain and didn't know what to do. Dr. Nick gave him some medicine, and it was clear that Elvis wouldn't be able to perform that day. The show was canceled, and the rest of the tour was stopped. Elvis went back to Memphis and was in the hospital for 4 days. He had medicine in his system that the doctor didn't prescribe. After that, he started tour number 3, but everyone at his house, including the maid, saw that he was in a lot of pain and under a lot of stress from his busy schedule. They thought it was normal for him to try to manage it, but it was really hard for most people to handle. During one of Elvis's shows, the Colonel made him put his head in ice water to make sure he performed. In Baltimore, Elvis had to leave the stage for a while because he felt sick. He came back to finish the show, but people were worried. That night, Elvis talked deeply with Kathy Westmoreland and Larry Geller about spiritual things. Kathy felt that Elvis knew she knew he was very sick and that he didn't have much time left. He was telling her this without saying it directly. After a break, Elvis started his 5th tour with 10 shows in 10 days. Sometimes during the last 2 tours, he had to stop performing for a bit or he would forget the lyrics. People weren't saying nice things about him, but the person in charge, the Colonel, still planned for Elvis to be on TV again. This time, it wouldn't just be a local newspaper talking about him in Omaha, but everyone in America would see him on CBS. Elvis didn't like this deal because he knew it would make a lot of money, $750,000, and he would have to share it with the Colonel. Elvis was worried about how he looked and if he could do a good job. There was a concert with 2 parts, but the first one didn't go well. He said the second one would be better. Even though the second show was better, he still didn't look as good as before and his voice wasn't as strong. Elvis had more problems than just a book release from some friends. When he performed his last concert in Indianapolis, he was in pain but promised to give his best. He said, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak," meaning he wanted to perform but his body was hurting. On the Colonel's birthday, Elvis played his last show ever. People thought it was one of his best performances in a while. After the show, Elvis went back to Memphis. His daughter, Lisa Marie, visited him for 2 weeks. During this time, Elvis did normal things like renting a fairground and a movie theater. He also spent time with his cousin Billy Smith and Billy's wife, Jo. Billy noticed that Elvis wasn't well and asked him to rest. Billy had seen the same signs in his father and aunt before they passed away. Elvis looked very sick, with a swollen stomach, just like Billy's dad and aunt did before they died. People wondered how Elvis could keep going with all his health problems. Elvis talked to Kathy Westmoreland and Lamar Fike on the phone, who both suggested he should stop touring and rest because he was sick. But Elvis couldn't stop working because the person managing him, the Colonel, had gambling debts and others in his group needed the money to support their families. A few days before a tour was supposed to start, Elvis spoke with Lamar again. He told Lamar he was tired and not feeling well, but Lamar urged him to cancel the tour. Elvis replied that he needed to pay his employees. On August 15, 1977, Elvis woke up with swollen ankles and planned to leave for his next tour the next day. He went to the dentist to get his teeth cleaned and some cavities filled. The dentist gave him strong pills for pain, even though something weaker would have been enough. Elvis drove home after the appointment, still able to drive safely. One early morning, Elvis asked his cousin Billy Smith to play racquetball. They were joined by Ginger and Joe Smith. Before leaving, Elvis sang a song at the piano. This would be the last song he ever sang. After playing, Billy helped Elvis wash and dry his hair. Elvis said it would be his best tour yet. Later, on August 16, 1977, Elvis Presley passed away at the age of 42. This changed everything for many people. It wasn't just sad for Elvis's father and daughter, or for the people who worked with him, or for his fans who lost the king of rock and roll. It was also a big change because people started to see Elvis as just another musician who was hurt by drugs, instead of the full person he was. After Elvis died, the world saw him differently. In Elvis Presley's unusual daily routine, Billy Smith left his room at 7:45 in the morning, which was actually bedtime for Elvis. Elvis was getting ready to sleep and took his sleeping medicine, which was given to him by either Dr. Nick or Nurse Tish. He took 2 packets of medicine, one at 6 a.m. and another 90 minutes later. He still couldn't sleep and asked for a 3rd packet before 9 a.m. This packet had 2 extra pills and 2 fake ones. He told Ginger he couldn't sleep and went to the bathroom with a book. Sadly, Elvis had a heart problem and passed away after standing, taking 2 steps and falling in the bathroom. Ginger found him unresponsive on the floor hours later, at 2 p.m. When Elvis stopped breathing, Joe Esposito and others tried to help him, but it was too late. His body was very stiff and cold. They couldn't open his mouth to do CPR because his jaw was locked. Elvis was taken to the hospital, and he was declared dead at 3:30 p.m., even though he might have died 6 hours earlier. By 7 p.m., a private autopsy was done because the family wanted to protect Elvis's privacy. However, this decision led to many conspiracy theories and incorrect ideas about what really happened. The colonel was in Maine preparing for a tour when he heard about Elvis. He quickly started making plans. Musicians and singers were already coming to Maine, but then they got the sad news. Everyone was shocked, even though they knew touring was hard on Elvis. Joe sent a plane to California to get Priscilla, her family, and some friends. In Memphis, Lisa, Elvis's daughter, saw strange things happening, but no one explained what was going on. People at Elvis's mansion were very surprised and sad. They knew Elvis was struggling, but they didn't think he would die so young. Cousin Harold remembered the last time he saw Elvis, just a few hours before he passed away. Elvis had been in a good mood, laughing and joking after a dentist visit. But sadly, things changed quickly. Elvis's cousin Billy Smith, who played with him just before going to the hospital, didn't think Elvis would die. He thought Elvis was too famous and important. Joe Esposito's girlfriend, Shirley, flew in from California with Priscilla on Elvis's plane. She saw how Priscilla, Elvis's mom, and his grandma were the most important people to him at that moment. They were his real family. When Elvis's mom, Gladys, passed away, Joe Esposito and the colonel arranged her funeral. It happened almost exactly 19 years before Elvis's mom's death at the age of 46. The same funeral home, Memphis Funeral Home, and the same man, Robert Kendall, handled the arrangements again. This time, it was for Elvis's grandmother, also at Graceland. They found a heavy copper casket like the one used for Gladys. Even though there were only 3 white Cadillac limousines in the state, they managed to get 17 for the procession. Larry Geller and Charlie Hodge went to the funeral home to take care of Elvis's hair one last time. They used makeup to cover any white hair around his hairline.